Hi everybody, Coach Steph here for another episode of your training on Fridays. So this week we're going to be talking about the F in self-love. So we are on week number 4, actually halfway through this training series. So the 3 F's about your boundaries. So it's fix, fail, and fortify. So what I mean by boundaries are the boundaries in all aspects of your life. So a lot of us feel like boundaries could be, countries, boundaries of, between Mexico and Canada, or Mexico and the US, US, Canada, right? Those are boundaries. We have walls up. It's a little political. But this is one of those things where people sometimes don't realize that we also have boundaries around us. And we have to have boundaries with everybody in our lives, whether they're friends, family, coworkers, partners / spouses, and children. It is important for us to have boundaries, and let me tell you why. Boundaries in and of themselves will keep us from getting stressed out. The lack of boundaries causes us to be stressed. It causes us to feel out of control. We end up getting angry and resentful and all of these other things that lead to negative emotions and basically end up sort of hurting our relationships around us and essentially hurt ourselves. So most people don't think about the fact that boundaries are a part of self-love and that we need to have those in order to love ourselves. But in fact, it is a big aspect and a big part of being in love with yourself and respecting yourself enough to have those boundaries with others. Now, boundaries, depending on who it is in your life, will look different. Your boundaries with your spouse obviously would be different than your boundaries with your coworker. Your coworker boundaries will be different than your parents or your children. So really trying to delve into what your boundaries are with each individual aspect in relationship with the people in your life. And we talked a little bit about last week about expectations, and I want to talk a little bit about how boundaries can play into expectations. One of the key things we talked about last week was how about how expectations can be something you put upon yourself that you think others expect of you, when in reality, it may not be. So I'd love to hear from you guys how your boundary experience worked last week with your expectations. Were you able to identify where you have expectations that you've put upon yourself that you think others have done for you? And have you had those conversations? Have you sat down with that person and said, hey, look, I just wanted to kind of go over this. This is what I feel like my expectations are, or that my expectation that you have of me, but are they really? Are they really my expectations? Do you really feel like these are the things I should or shouldn't be doing or saying? If they're not, then you need to readjust that, right? And that's a part, again, of boundaries. Now, it may be that you go and have those conversations with others and they have a bound or an expectation of you that you don't feel comfortable with. Maybe they expect you to be readily available every time they text you or call you, or maybe they expect you to be available every time they want to go out to dinner, and that doesn't work for you. And so that is a time where you need to set your boundaries and tell somebody, well, I'm not sure that that's going to work for me. Okay, so really looking at boundaries with everybody in your life, all different aspects, making sure that you're also looking at what others' expectations of you are, right? That's the exercise we talked about last week that plays into boundaries too. And like I said before, figuring out what those boundaries are and realizing what your expectations of others are on you can also be a big sense of relief, right? Because when we don't have boundaries, like I said earlier, we feel out of control. We end up getting burnt out and resentful. And this is one that I am really, really guilty of. I will, as a people pleaser, I didn't have boundaries. And so I just kind of did what everybody else asked of me because I wanted to make everybody else happy. And I ended up burning myself out in the process because I didn't put myself first. I didn't make myself a priority. And then the times where I turned around and needed something from somebody else, because I've done all of these things for them, I expected that they would do it in return. And maybe their healthy boundary didn't allow them to give it back to me the way that I had expected, which led me to be resentful and angry and frustrated, and a lot of the times felt out of control. So this is another reason why you really need to have these boundaries set up. So here's the other thing that I'd like to talk about too, though. Boundaries don't necessarily need to be clearly communicated when you figure them out. And let me explain. It's not like you're going to go into work and say, okay, listen, my boundary with you is this, and my boundary with you is this, and my boundary with you is this. Because even with amongst your coworkers, your boundaries may be different because you have different personalities, and there may be boundaries with a coworker that you really like. Maybe you guys hug on each other, or you nudge each other in the arm, or you joke around. But maybe you have that one coworker that really irritates you, that like their personality and your personality is like sandpaper. You just don't get along. So maybe you're not going over there and giving them a nudge or giving them a side hug or joking around with them, right? Your boundary with that person is different. Okay? So just to say you can't lump everybody into the same. I know for me personally, I have different boundaries with different family members. There are some people that I have much greater boundaries and they are much stronger and fortified than with others. Again, it depends on the person, and it is totally okay for you to have boundaries with one person in your family that's completely different from another. It really essentially comes down to what feels right for you, what is self-honoring, and what is self-serving. And self-serving, I feel like, has a lot of negative connotations as a word, but I feel like we need to be able to serve ourselves before we can serve others. So really, when you're talking about establishing those boundaries, when you're going to be stepping through and thinking about this over the next week, I'd invite you to look at each individual person as their own set of boundaries, and it's okay, and you don't have to lump them all in together. So the other thing that I want you to also think about too is learning how to say no. For me, this was huge. And I heard somebody say to me many, many years ago, no is a full and complete sentence. And that's a hard one, right? Because you want to say no, but, or no, and you want to explain yourself. So if somebody says to you, oh, I'd love for us to be able to get together on Friday. No. And then when we go, well, I'd love to do it maybe another day. Well, here's the thing. You want to close end these. You want to close end your no's if you feel like you're not going to want to do it ever. So let's go back to the coworker that we talked about before. We don't like this coworker. They're really annoying. We're like sandpaper. May not even said it to them, but you know in your heart of hearts, this is not a person you want to get along with, right? Maybe they say to you, oh, listen, you know what? I'm having some people over my house on Friday for some drinks after work. You want to come? No, I'm good. Thank you. That doesn't work for me. You close end that no. Now, if it's a coworker that you love, and let's say you have other plans, then of course you're going to say, no, I'd love to next time, right? You leave it open-ended. But close ending no's can actually help you with your boundaries as well. And make sure that you realize you don't have to explain yourself all of the time. You don't owe anybody an explanation as to why you're saying no. It is a nice gesture, and in cases you may feel like you want to and it's warranted, and in others, no is a full and complete sentence in and of itself. So the other piece that I want to talk about too, especially when it comes to boundaries, and if you're anything like me and have been a people pleaser or are a people pleaser, there is a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt when you set up boundaries. There's a lot of fear. There's fear of them being angry with you. There's fear of, oh, you know what? I used to do that for them all the time, and now I'm not doing it for them anymore. Maybe they're going to be upset with me. Well, what I'd love to invite you to think about is you need to be worried about yourself first. You need to be worried about how am I taking care of myself? What is going to serve me? Because even if it is a friend, but that friend seems to be very taxing on you, if you don't set up boundaries, you're draining yourself into that other person. And how is that serving you? And then maybe that person is so draining that you don't have time to show up for your kids or your spouse or partner or at work. So try and take that into consideration too. When you have people in your life where you need to create better boundaries, but you feel guilty over it, think of what those lack of boundaries will take away from in other areas of your life that are important to you. So the other piece that I'd like to talk about is, starting with small boundaries. And this is something we've talked about many, many weeks ago in one of my other trainings, is when you are new to boundaries, do a small boundary first. And then work yourself up, because what you'll find is once you start to establish smaller boundaries, maybe it's with somebody that you're not really worried about what their reaction is. Start with a boundary with that person. Or even if it's just RSVPing to a party and just saying, sorry, we can't make it because your schedule's chock full of 6 other things and you originally would just go and try and work it out. Start with a small no. Start with a small boundary. And then once you're able to do that relatively easy, Then establish other boundaries. But here's the thing that I want you to also think about when it comes to boundaries. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Okay, so if you're gonna sit down this week and walk through this and really trying to figure out where you don't have boundaries today and where you'd like to, you don't have to have it all figured out. Because what I have found, especially over the last 6 months of my life, I didn't know it was a boundary till somebody stepped on it. And then there was something in me that said, ooh, that doesn't feel right to me. Like, no, I'm not okay with that. And then it was afterwards going back and going, listen, this happened, and I'm just letting you know that that's not okay for me. So give yourself a little bit of breathing room with this exercise. It's not all encompassing. You don't have to have it all figured out at once, but really try and take some time to think about what kind of boundaries you'd like to have. And just recognize the fact that you don't have to have it all figured out. And there may be along the way where you're going to have to readjust, and it could be bringing them in tighter, or it could be opening them up a little bit more. And that's perfectly okay to have some flexibility with your boundaries. So with that all said, I would love to talk to you a little bit about the special offer I have for today. So as you all know, I have last year created a journal. Oh, and it's upside down. Goals with Grace and Gratitude. Now, I am through my second version of my own journal, and I was reflecting the other night about how pivotal these last months have been in my life. And going back and looking at some of the things that I'd written early on in my journey and how helpful this journal was, because it's only 5-10 minutes a day to do this, and I have found that it has really helped me get to the place where I'm at in such a short period of time. And so I'd love to be able to open up my workshop to you guys, for those of you that you may not be on the same journey as me, right? And I hope that most of you aren't, because it's quite frankly, it sucks. But for those of you that are struggling with goals, like I talked about last night after going on that run, if there is something that you want to do and you're just not stepping into it, what is holding you back? Maybe you want something greater for your life, but you're not really sure what it is. You're just like, okay, this place I'm in is not where I'm meant to stay forever. And I want to grow. I want to be better. I want to change. I want to, whatever it is, this workshop will be the thing that can help catalyst you to the next step. And so I would invite you, I'm hosting my next workshop on April 1st, Monday. It will be a 5-day workshop. I will go live half an hour each day in a private Facebook group, and I will step you through the 5 steps in this journal to set you up for success. So we've talked a lot about this last 4 weeks about self-love and how self-love is a big key to success. But having goals, having grace, giving yourself grace and gracefully going for your goals, and having gratitude along the way is another big piece to be able to be successful. And so if you are interested in joining the workshop, I would love to have you. I am going to basically be giving the workshop away for free. So normally I charge $47 for the workshop, which includes a copy of the journal. But for this last round, because I am changing the cover, I'm revamping, I'm actually headed to a mastermind next week in Scottsdale to basically revamp my business and really get things rocking and rolling. I'm going to have a new journal and a new setup, and I'm going to be completely changing the way that I do things. So in order to sort of get through my inventory of journals that I have left, and I think I have maybe 30, I am offering the workshop for $27. So the journal itself is $20, so for $7 extra, you can do the 5-day workshop with me, one-on-one coaching. Through this live training, I will be able to answer comments and questions and so on and so forth. It will be a small group. And so here's the other thing. If you watch this far, gold stars. And if you're watching me live, hashtag live. I forgot to talk about this in the beginning. If you're watching me on the replay, hashtag replay. What I want to do is at the end of this workshop that I'm going to do at the end of April, or sorry, the beginning of April, April 1st, there is going to be a special bonus offer. And it is going to be huge, like huge, and I don't want to say any more, but if this is all if going for your goals, if you're struggling and you need that extra little push, please let me know. This workshop will be hopefully very helpful for you to be able to get you going on your goals. I would love to be able to mentor you and coach you and help you create these goals and help you be able to step into what you want to do and to help you along the way, okay? So, and like I said, at the end of the workshop, I will be, I'm kind of scared. I literally just thought of this right before I went live. I was like, maybe I should offer this. I was like, wow, that's a lot of money that I'd be giving away for like almost nothing. Like we're talking thousands of dollars worth of stuff that I'm basically going to give away for nothing at the end of this workshop. And I'm kind of scared to do it, but I want to be able to help as much as I possibly can. That's why I got in this business to begin with. But the only way for you to get access to that offer is for you to join the workshop. So if you want to join the workshop, comment workshop below and I will send you the information and we will get all set up. I'll send you a private message. I'll get you going on your goals and we'll get you all set up and ready to rock and roll for April 1st. Let's see what we've got going on. Hey, Lori. Hi, Loopy. Let's see. We've got Lexi. Hi, Lexi. Hi, Barry. Marquette. Samantha. Amy. Jade. Damaris. How are you guys doing this fine Friday evening? All right. So, to recap, 3 F's for your boundaries. Fix, fortify, and what's my final word? Find. Find your boundaries, fix them, and fortify them. Okay, those are your 3 F's. And if you get 3 F's, you're not actually failing, you're winning. All right, so 3 F's. Find, fix, fortify your boundaries. If you want the worksheet that's attached to this to step through this exercise, comment 3F below and I will be sure to send it to you. Have a great rest of your evening. Take care. Bye-bye.